The reason I love this book, Invasive Plant Medicine by Timothy Lee Scott, is because it's proved to me how beneficial the invasive plants are. The plants that I used to hate in my garden, I now feel in awe of. I just feel so proud to have these plants growing wild that I can actually use as medicine. The reason we should buy this book is because we need to support people, herbalists like Timothy Lee Scott, who speak out about the wrongdoing of using chemicals in our world that not only destroys the soil but the ecosystem, and it's destroying wonderful plants that we need as medicine, that we can use as medicine, and that are basically being used as medicine right now as we speak, like Japanese knotweed. You know, transresveratrol is being sold for big money. You look on the internet, you do a Google search on there, and you will find lots of information where the capsules are being sold for a lot of money. Invasive plant medicine demonstrates how these invasives restore natural balance and biodiversity to the environment, and examines the powerful healing properties offered by 24 of the most common invasive plants growing in North America and Europe. Each plant Timothy Lee Scott mentions, he gives a wonderful breakdown about the plant. He tells you the names of the plant description, all about the plant, the medical uses, the plant chemistry, scientific studies, where, how can it be that this Japanese knotweed has got well over 4 patents, medical patents, yet our media and our governments call it an invasive, and chemicals are being used, taxpayers' money is being used to destroy this plant, instead of actually using it to benefit the taxpayer. This is beyond me. I do not understand why people are not questioning this. So it goes through the antioxidant, anti-cancer, wound healing, other uses. And this is just, on Japanese knotweed. Let me just turn over the page. So here we have waging war on plants. Basically it is a war on not only the plants, but on our, ecosystem. Using all these chemicals, that's worse than Japanese knotweed growing somewhere. Intelligence of plants. And then we've got all the different plants here, where Timothy gives, all the good reasons why they're so important and their health benefits. So, we've got loads of them. I used to hate the blackberry bush growing in the garden. How stupid was that? Because, it's a wonderful wild fruit. Dr. Michael Greger mentions, berries being, on his daily dozen list. So, you can't beat blackberries because it's a wild berry and it's going to have more nutrition. So there's loads of them here. You've got barberry, blackberry, dandelion, English ivy, garlic mustard, Japanese honeysuckle, Japanese knotweed, loads of different ones. Plantain, which is another favourite of mine, the one I can't even pronounce. Thistle, wild mustard, wild rose. There's just lots of them there. Timothy writes, we need to understand that nature does not make mistakes, that Earth is, at minimum, 3.5 billion years old, and that Earth has been engaging in this process a lot longer than our species has existed. There is a war being conducted with countless silent casualties. We are told it is better this way, to kill our offenders instead of trying to understand them and listen to their side of the story. We are told we must stop them, for they are destroying and taking over our lives. This war is taking place all over our world, and there is a deadly secret slowly invading our own backyards. And it's not the plants, you think, that are the problem. War on invasive species war on terrorism, war on drugs, war on disease, war on poverty. It is interesting to note that all our instruments of destruction and war come from the same companies, in the same factories, with the same mentality. The same raw materials are used to create the deadly poisons, both for human warfare and for the everyday war on pests, sarin gas, DDT, Agent Orange, and the rainbow herbicides by the notorious Monsanto. These war factories are good at only one thing: death and destruction. Timothy Lee Scott talks about biofuels and how plants can be used to create electricity. I think that this is really worthy of scientific evidence and funding to make this happen. Now, as you can see here, resveratrol is massive, and a great big pharmaceutical company has bought out another company for $720 million to cash in on the profits of resveratrol. And Japanese knotweed has the greatest concentration of resveratrol of any plant in the world. So what does that tell you? Yes, they talk about resveratrol with grapes, but they do not talk about resveratrol with Japanese knotweed. Follow the money. When I was missold on this property 15 years ago, I had no idea that we had Japanese knotweed growing in the garden. The actual owners had cut it all back and burnt it in the middle of the back garden, so you could see no plants down the back garden apart from the trees. They also hid the fact that there's a blocked off stream which floods this house. Luckily for us, our neighbours next door are absolutely lovely, and they built a little brick wall to stop the water flooding from the stream when it really rains heavy, which was flooding our kitchen. Luckily there was no damage in the kitchen, but you know, if it carried on it could have been, so we're very lucky here. Now, I like to turn every negative into a very powerful positive, and that's what I've done right here. I refuse to go down without a fight. The press, the government are claiming that this plant is destroying our property value, and I for one will not stand for this bullying, because we have scientific evidence here that trans resveratrol is big. Pharmaceutical companies are making billions out of this plant, so it's about time that property owners are actually told about the value of Japanese knotweed. It reminds me very much of Nicholas Culpeper, where the Royal Society went out of their way to stop him from helping the poor cure themselves from illness using plants, and why the medical books were written in Latin, which he got translated to English. And also, you know, Dr. Michael Greger states very clearly that you will not see any adverts promoting broccoli because it's a perishable. It's not a Twinkie or a Mars bar, a Snickers bar sitting on the shelf. You know, it's a plant that is perishable and doesn't make profit. But he says, you know, what if we promote this because it profits our lives? And that's very important, you know, to understand that sadly when it comes to some elites, profit is all they care about. They don't care about human life and the planet, and that's not good. It's not good to have these sort of role models running our country. What we need to do is equal the playing field. We need working class people in government. Then we can really get our countries back on track financially, because there will be some humanity in the world.